I was a big fan of the No Kings protest, but what it comes right down to is I think young people just don't find it that compelling, that fashionable. I think the problem is I think we f***ed up. I think we took civics out of high school curriculum and replaced it with computer science, hoping all our kids would be Mark Zuckerberg and try and figure out ways to make billions while encouraging young girls to self-cut. In today's Office Hours, we discuss the gap in political protest, the alcohol industry, and how I measure my impact. Question number 1.
Hello, Professor Galloway. You discussed with Heather Cock Richardson the effectiveness of the No Kings protests. She said that nonviolence and that people can see themselves in the group is important. I agree. But I see very few young people, and when I do, they're mostly in cities. What is that about? It's their future, not the people in the protests who are older like me. Young people can organize around Gaza, and that's fine, but not this, which has direct impact on their life. Why do you think this is the case?
So nearly 7 million people took to the streets nationwide on October 18th as part of the No Kings rallies, one of the largest single-day demonstrations in U.S. history. Unlike earlier waves of activism during the first administration, the crowds this time skewed older. In D.C., the median age was 44, according to data collected by researchers at American University who study protest movements. The typical attendee was an educated white woman in her 40s who learned about the rally through friends or Instagram. The thing I noticed about the protest, I did watch a lot of it on television, is just how old and how wide it was. And I couldn't figure it out. So I find that young people's risk aggressiveness and social consciousness can be channeled in very positive ways. I think they're good actors. I think their heart is in the right place. But I would argue, and again, I'm going to sound boomer here, that protesting someone who is acting like an autocrat, creating an orgy of corruption that will turn away both financial and human capital, is ultimately going to reduce our prosperity, our freedoms. And I think the world right now is in a state of chaos because of the lack of a superpower with its heart in the right place. So I would argue, and again, as an old white dude, I was really moved by this protest, where mom and dad seem outraged because perhaps they recognize that a lot of the things that helped them get to where they were are under attack right now. I just don't think they find it that interesting or that emotionally engaging. Or put another way, I don't think they find it as fashionable. I was just happy to see a lot of people turn out. About 7 million people, or about 2%. Supposedly at 3.5%, that's when you foment change. That's when the crowd, if you will, becomes undeniable. And so we got to 2%, but I found the whole thing just incredibly inspiring that people take time out of their weekend to peacefully protest. And as Heather Cox Richardson, who I adore, pointed out, that the most effective protest is peaceful protest. I was a big fan of the No Kings protest, but what it comes right down to is I think young people just don't find it that compelling, that fashionable. I think the problem is I think we fucked up. I think we took civics out of high school curriculum and replaced it with computer science, hoping all our kids would be Mark Zuckerberg and try and figure out ways to make billions while encouraging young girls to self-cut. And I don't think young people probably have as strong a sense for our history on the positive side and how important it was to have co-equal branches of government, rule of law, and are more engaged in what they believe are the injustices levied against special interest groups, which are very real. Simply put, it just didn't catch on among young people. I don't fully understand it. But at the end of the day, as long as people are engaged in civil protest, I think it's a good thing. But I noticed the same thing you did. Very much appreciate the question. I'm Scott Galloway, and here's something you should know. Brands live or die in execution. And a brand is only as strong as the velocity at which they can create content. Adobe Express keeps teams aligned and solves for critical content bottlenecks with seamless collaboration features. Imagine a fast-growing fizzy drink brand. It's continuing to scale, but with multiple teams in different time zones, scattered across different markets and working in silos, content velocity starts to slow. Adobe Express closes that gap. Workflows are seamless. Designers can start creating in their favorite Creative Cloud products, including Photoshop and InDesign, and then easily import files directly into Adobe Express. That way, anyone with any level of design experience can jump in and make last-mile edits. Plus, Adobe Express keeps even the most spread-out teams aligned with live co-editing, commenting, and built-in review and approval flows. Team members can jump into any file to tag colleagues, co-edit in real time, and trade feedback without ever needing to leave the platform, meaning content moves from idea to done faster and stays on brand. Strong brands scale because their teams can execute at speed. Adobe Express makes that possible. Support for the show comes from LinkedIn. If you've ever hired for your small business, you know how important it is to find the right person. That's why LinkedIn Jobs is stepping things up with their new AI assistant, so you can feel confident you're finding top talent that you can't find anywhere else. And those great candidates you're looking for are already on LinkedIn. In fact, according to their data, employees hired through LinkedIn are 30% more likely to stick around for at least a year compared to those hired through the leading competitor. That's a big deal when every hire counts. With LinkedIn Jobs AI Assistant, you can skip confusing steps in recruiting jargon. It filters through applicants based on criteria you've set for your role and surfaces only the best matches so you're not stuck sorting through a mountain of resumes. LinkedIn Jobs AI Assistant can even suggest 25 great fit candidates daily so you can invite them to apply and keep things moving. Hire right the first time. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/prof, then promote it to use LinkedIn Jobs' new AI assistant, making it easier and faster to find top candidates. That's linkedin.com/prof to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Question number 2.
Hi, Scott. It's Johnny from Perth here in Scotland. My company's starting a new whisky distillery in the Scottish Highlands. I'm fortunate to have brilliant business partners, a passionate, hard-working team, and supportive shareholders. We're not trying to be disruptive, but we are doing things a little differently, focusing on quality and traditional production in a way that stands us apart from much of the industry. As you may know, Scotch whisky, like most alcohol categories, is going into a bit of a dip. I'm confident consumption will recover over time. People have drank alcohol for millennia, but this downturn could last 5 to 10 years. My question is, what advice would you give to a young company launching into a challenging market cycle?
Oh my God, hello. So first off, I love Scotland. So first off, alcohol is in fact a little bit fucked. So according to Bloomberg, shares in the world's biggest beer, wine, and spirits producers have collectively lost $830 billion in market value over just the last 4 years. A Bloomberg index tracking roughly 50 publicly traded beverage companies is now down 46%. Young people are drinking a lot less. They still love to get high. They're still abusing substances. They're just abusing psychedelics and ketamine and mushroom chocolates and ecstasy instead of alcohol. So the alcohol industry is getting the shit kicked out of it. On the Scotch industry specifically, about 90% of Scotch whiskey production is exported. In 2024, global exports of Scotch whiskey were 5.4 billion sterling, or about $7 billion. That's down 3.7% from 2023. When you think, okay, down 4%, that's not a collapse. Your ability to raise capital, your ability to get distribution partners, when a business is shrinking, that means everyone's fighting over the existing business, and it is especially hard to break in. In that same year, the industry shipped around 1.4 billion bottles, up about 4% in volume versus 2023. Because the value fell while volume rose, that means the average price per bottle is declining, so they have less pricing power. But compared to 2019, Scotch whiskey is down but not out. Export value is actually 10% higher than before the pandemic, and volumes are up nearly 4% from last year and about 7% from 2019. Back to your question. I find that the best time to start a business is when it's not in a down cycle, but bottoming. And it's hard to time this. But if I were to look back on my 9 businesses, it's really all about timing. So what is the right timing? The right timing is to be investing in the bottom of the U of a recession. Why? Because people, inputs, office space are all cheap. You're becoming a warrior. If you can make a business work in this environment, it means you have something. It means you have a great Scotch. And then as the winds kick up again, and hopefully they will in alcohol, but a great Navy SEALs training for running a business is starting in a recession. Ideally, you don't want it to go down. Ideally, you want to be at the bottom. It's difficult to time this because when things come back, you have a tight, lean, mean fighting machine called a business. And as it comes back, you get a natural lift because you already have the scale, good people, you're ready to catch a wave. So in 2009, when I started L2, a benchmarking firm, the luxury industry was in the shitter. I started benchmarking all their digital activities. And then when the market came back and the internet was coming online, they all wanted to approach their business differently, open up new channels. Chanel and Hermes didn't sell things online. They said they would never sell on the internet. Okay, famous last words. And I said, yes, you will. And I'm going to track your progress and help you build an amazing digital presence. And a lot of that was just timing. I mean, it was just a great time to be in business from 2009 to 2017. That was just an incredible bull market run. And then picking the luxury business, which was on champagne on top of cocaine. So actually, you're in I think, a decent part of the cycle to start a business. Now, how are you successful? Simply put, you throw nickels around like they're manhole covers. You watch every goddamn cent. You review every bill. You negotiate for every bill. And if you need to, keep your costs on the labor side down. I don't know if you have the ability to do this, but with some of your senior level employees, you may want to give them equity as a form of compensation. So at all my companies, I think we paid people 10 to 30% below market in current comp, but I would give them double or triple the industry standard in equity such that I could keep my cash burn really low. But if there was an exit, they would do really well. But throw nickels around like they're manhole covers, be constantly innovating every day. What should your management style be as the head of a small business? Be all over fucking everything all the time. Everybody talks about, I remember being on these panels of entrepreneurs. Oh, it's the right culture, the right environment. Well, my environment was I was all over everything, trying to improve every goddamn thing every day. What's going on with this? What's going on with her? What's going on with this client? Is this person happy? Is this person unhappy? Why does our site look like shit? Why are we not getting financial reports as quickly as we should? Why are we spending so much fucking money on legal services? How do we get our input prices down? How do we establish new channels of distribution? Do I need to get on a plane to go visit Tesco or whatever the hell it is? I actually think entering into the market in a bit of a down cycle, hoping that it's cyclical, not structural, that's a question mark right now. We'll be right back after a quick break. Support for the show comes from Neiman Marcus. If you're struggling to think of a truly unique gift for the holidays, then check out Neiman Marcus. It's your home for the most exceptional gifts this season. From the ultimate stocking stuffers to statement bags made for celebration to their legendary fantasy gifts that surpass every expectation, Neiman Marcus has something extraordinary for everyone. And with style advisors to guide you, finding the perfect gift at every price point is effortless. So head to Neiman Marcus for a truly unforgettable holiday. Welcome back. On to our final question.
Hi, Scott. My name's Graham from Colorado. I've heard you say many times that you are going to avoid a political run because you think you can affect greater change from, quote, outside of the bottle. So my question today is, what change have you seen affected from all of your thoughts on your podcasts? I think that you come to each one of your podcasts with a lot of intention and cogency and pragmatism, and I really appreciate all those thoughts. But I am curious if you have any numbers or metrics or ROI that you can speak to where you have seen your ideas actually being implemented or digested in the bigger political ecosystem, whether from lobbyists or politicians, etc.
Thanks for the question. So metrics, again, just being very raw, my key metric is how much money I have. I know that sounds pathetic to say, but it's a metric I grew up with. And I think, okay, is this business making money? Is it making everybody at the company economically secure or wealthier? So the more substantive metrics are more qualitative. So I started talking about the dangers of big tech in 2016. I just know I'm having an impact. I know that when Senator Warren said, if we didn't have antitrust, we'd all be saying, let's Bing it instead of, Google it. I know she got that from me. I know that, or someone on her staff got that from me. I know that when I started talking about income inequality, I was a raft of people talking about it, but it's gotten a lot more attention. And most recently, when Governor Moore or Governor Newsom's offices reach out to me to have me on or talk to them about the struggles of young men, I know I'm having an impact. But I don't have specific metrics. Unfortunately, the metric that's always in your face is the number of likes you got on a social media post, which I really hate, because I think how you have real impact is your heart's in the right place, you're data-driven, you're fearless about saying certain things. But how do I know I'm having an impact? I have dialogue with people at quote unquote the highest levels, and I am starting to. Governor Moore just in his State of the State address in Maryland announced that the focus of his administration in the coming year was going to be on the struggles of young men and boys. A politician could not have said that 5 years ago. No fucking way. No way. So I think we are having a real impact. And then the most rewarding actually thing is when young men or mothers come up to you or send you an email. That is very rewarding. But what are my metrics for trying to have an impact? On a very base, crude level, does this business work? Is this message working? Am I seeing programs in a dialogue that is clearly impacted or influenced by what we're doing here. By the way, I'm saying I a lot. Greatness is in the agency of others. If you want to have a real impact, you need to build an organization with people who are really talented. Otherwise, you're just going to be a sole contributor and you're never going to have that much impact. Unless you're Noam Chomsky or someone who's just such a fucking genius, which I am not. It's about attracting and retaining really talented people who can hopefully scale the message and the impact you're having. And that's my superpower. My, core competence is communication, but my superpower is an ability to attract and retain people more talented than myself. That is absolutely, I know so many people who come to me and say, I want to build what you've done. And I'm like, okay, hire a fucking amazing people, figure out a way to pay them a lot of money. That's the key. The majority of people that do what we do here do it as sole proprietors. It's them in 2 turntables and a microphone or a laptop. And they want to know why they're not having the same impact. It's like, well, folks, Prof G Media is about 25 or 28 people right now. And they are all really talented, well-compensated, creative, hardworking young people, which doesn't get me 25 times the impact I would have. It gets me 50 fucking times the impact I would have. This shit just doesn't happen. Anyways, as I get older, I want to have more impact on social issues. I especially want to pay it back and ensure that the amazing things that gave me the prosperity I have are still in place. Pell Grants, big admissions acceptance policies at universities, a tax policy that puts money in young people's pockets, tax credits that engage and activate the private sector around development and do away with NIMBY laws and pass YIMBY legislation such we have 8 million new homes in 10 years. I'm speaking to a bunch of people about the affordability crisis for young people. So I guess it's a mix of things and accountability or, a mix of metrics, but you'll know it. You'll know if you feel like you're having an impact on things. What is dangerous is to have your measurement be likes and algorithms in social media. That the people in 10 years, 20 years, and 50 years who will look back on it, admire, trust me, pretty much didn't give a flying fuck how many likes they got on a certain post. That is the danger, that we no longer control the algorithms control us, and we all start barking up the same tree, which makes us stupid. That's all for this episode. If you'd like to submit a question, please email a voice recording to officehours@profgmedia.com. Again, that's officehours@profgmedia.com. Or if you prefer to ask on Reddit, just post your question on the Scott Galloway subreddit, and we just might feature it in an upcoming episode.